I feared her more than I feared anyone else.
For 24 years, the world believed that Gypsy Rose was a dying girl. People saw her wheelchair, they heard her high-pitched voice, they saw her shaved head, and they assumed they knew the truth, that this was a sick girl who had been dealing with sicknesses pretty much since the day she was born and who probably didn't have long left to live. But in English, there is a massive difference between what appears to be true and what is actually happening.
And I want to start off with saying things are not always as they appear.
Hi, I'm Alice, and this is English with Alice B. I'm a certified English tutor, and I'm also a language learner. I actually reached fluency in Italian by listening to true crime stories, just like this one. This helped me to stay motivated when textbooks and studying grammar became a little bit boring. And I want to share this same method with you. Today, we are going to use this incredible case to master the passive voice. Remember, the passive voice is used when we're focusing on the receiver of the action, when something is done to someone. Gypsy was lied to, she was medicated when she didn't need to be, she was controlled, and she was imprisoned. And as we will see, the passive voice also helps to hide who is really in control. If you want to master English by listening to real-life stories, hit the subscribe button. Here is the vocabulary bank for today's story. Remember, you can pause, take screenshots, and take notes if you need to. The language that we are looking at today is related to deception, lying, hiding the truth. Okay, let's look at today's case. Gypsy Rose was born in July in 1991 in Louisiana, in the USA, to parents Claudine and Rod Blanchard. Practically from birth, Gypsy did not have an easy life. She suffered from a number of serious health issues that gave her problems with her eyesight, her hearing, her walking, her mental capacity. According to her mother, who was mostly called Dee Dee, Gypsy suffered from leukemia, muscular dystrophy, and brain damage. Let's have a look at the phrase according to. I said according to her mother, Dee Dee. We use this when we're repeating information from another person. I may not know it to be true. I am repeating to you the information that I've heard from Dee Dee, Gypsy's mother. According to Dee Dee, Gypsy had the following illnesses. This is a great way to show that you are not 100% sure if the information is true. This information has come from someone else. To her neighbors and to the people around her, Gypsy was a symbol of hope. You know, this young girl who has so many complications, such a difficult time in life, and she was still so joyous, always smiling, always talking with the neighbors and the people around her when she could. Her mother was her full-time caregiver. What a fantastic mom she was, dedicating her life to taking care of her young girl. Because of these illnesses, Gypsy was forced to use a wheelchair. She was forced to take feeding tubes, and her hair was shaved because of her cancer treatments. Her mother said, eventually your hair will fall out, so let's shave it now. Let's take away some of the pain of losing your hair. Notice I said her hair was shaved off. This is an example of the passive voice. This is something that was done to Gypsy. These things are happening to her. When you want to describe someone who is being controlled, the passive voice is key. If you watch old videos of Gypsy, you'll see she spoke with this incredibly high-pitched voice, almost like a baby.
I believe there are angels among us, sent down to us from somewhere up above. They come to you and me in our darkest.
In fact, her whole demeanor, her whole look, her whole character was that of a very young child. Dee Dee also insisted that Gypsy had the mental capacity of a child. This meant that when they went to doctor's appointments, Dee Dee, her mother, was often the one talking to the doctors. She wouldn't allow Gypsy to talk to the doctors, and she would say that Gypsy didn't really understand what was happening to her because she had a low mental capacity. By using this word, Dee Dee convinced the doctors that Gypsy couldn't make her own decisions and that she needed supervision. In 2008, after Hurricane Katrina destroyed the house that they were living in, they were donated a house by the charity Habitat for Humanity. The charity built them a home that was accessible for a wheelchair. It was comfortable for someone who needed help to get around, spacious, and it even had a hot tub. Everything seemed perfect. Well, as perfect as things could be in Gypsy's position. But as the years passed and as Gypsy got older, she started to realize things that didn't really make sense. Her mother was very controlling. In fact, Gypsy's father wasn't even really present in her life. Dee Dee had isolated Gypsy and kind of pushed everyone else away. And as Gypsy grew older and went into becoming a young woman and into teenagehood, she started to feel imprisoned by her mother. She was trapped. She craved that freedom that we all do when we're teenagers. She wanted to make friends. She wanted to go to a normal school. She wanted to meet people online. She wanted to talk to boys. But she was very well supervised by her mother, and she was not permitted to do these things. One day in 2012, while Gypsy was on the internet, she found a dating website, a Christian dating website. This was just so she could connect with people. She wasn't really looking for anything serious. She just wanted to know a little bit more about what the outside world felt like. And one day on this Christian dating website, she connected with a man that would change the course of her life. She connected with a man called Nicholas Godejohn. He was a few years older than her, and for the next 3 years, they had a relationship that was entirely online. They would connect every night and have video conversations. They would send messages to each other. She would send him pictures, but the entire relationship was from behind the screen. They wrote each other thousands of messages, and eventually, Gypsy started to confide in Nicholas that she felt trapped by her mother. She felt imprisoned. She even confided that at one point she started to realize she didn't need a wheelchair. She could walk and she could eat normally. She didn't need the feeding tubes. They started to talk about getting married, having children, and then they realized that the only way they could really be together was if Dee Dee was not in the picture. Establishing any kind of relationship with Gypsy was impossible while her mother was there, blocking her from the entire world. Gypsy understood that as long as her mother was around, she would always be the sick girl. She decided that the only way to be free, truly free, was if her mother wasn't around. She didn't just want to run away from home, she wanted to end the control forever. So Dee Dee and Gypsy did everything together. They look like a very close mother and daughter. And because of Gypsy's illnesses, she was donated holidays, trips to Disneyland. The community was very supportive of them. Everything that Dee Dee did, or everything that Gypsy did, Dee Dee did with her. So in June 2015, everything takes a shocking turn. On June 14, a disturbing status was posted on their Facebook page. So Dee Dee and Gypsy had a joint Facebook page together where they would post updates about Gypsy's life, her treatment, how things were going. A status was posted that said, "That is dead." So that bad woman is dead. I have to keep it clean. At first, people thought the account had been hacked, but it was quite disturbing. It was quite alarming. So some friends decided to call the police and ask for a wellness check. So they asked for the police to go to the house of Dee Dee and Gypsy just to check that everything was okay. They wanted to know that Dee Dee and Gypsy were alive, well, and safe. But when the police arrived to their home, what they found was a horrific scene. a violent crime had taken place. The police found Dee Dee dead in her bed. She had been stabbed 17 times. Gypsy was missing, and her wheelchair and the oxygen tanks were still at home. So they were confronted with this horrible idea that Dee Dee had been murdered, brutally murdered, and Gypsy had been kidnapped. And she's in a helpless position. She's without her wheelchair, she's without her medication. What on earth could have happened? Where could she be? Who could she be with? So the police began to track the IP address from the Facebook post, and it led them to a home hundreds of miles away in Wisconsin. When they found the house, obviously, police went there expecting to find a perpetrator and expecting to find Gypsy distressed, vulnerable, in a terrifying situation. But when they opened the door, things became even more complicated. Gypsy wasn't struggling, she was walking, and it didn't look like she had been kidnapped. She was standing on her own 2 feet. So obviously, the police have to arrest them. They were the last people to see Dee Dee alive, and the questioning, the interrogation begins. In the interrogation room, Gypsy was still talking in this baby voice. She was still giving this act of the vulnerable girl, the sick girl. And when detectives told her that her mother was dead, she acted shocked and confused.
Your mom's dead. Okay. Now, what I want to ask you is your mom's passed away. Okay, and she's deceased. All right. Now, what I want to ask you: did you have involvement in this? Okay.
And sad and hurt by what had happened. She asked questions. How did it happen? Who did this? She said that she didn't know anything about the Facebook post and she had no involvement with her mother's death. But the detectives had some digital evidence. They had already seen the conversations that she had had with Nicholas. They had CCTV footage of the couple walking around. Gypsy, as you can see here, is walking. She's walking freely. She seems calm. She seems to be a participant in whatever it is that Nicholas is doing. These videos were taken 2 days after the police believed Dee Dee had been killed. The couple was also seen checking in and then subsequently checking out of a hotel. It's believed that they had taken a bus away from Missouri, stayed at a motel before going back to Nicholas's house in Wisconsin. And eventually, Gypsy realizes that the game was over. She conceded, so she confessed, she accepted that she was involved. She admitted that she had asked Nicholas to come to the house to rescue her, to save her from this prison that she was trapped in. She admitted that she could walk, and she admitted that she was the mastermind behind this plan. Suddenly, the miracle girl was gone, and instead, the police were dealing with a young woman who had seemingly been through years of perhaps even torture, but definitely imprisonment. Nicholas Godejohn was not a professional criminal. In fact, he had some learning difficulties. They understood that he was quite severely autistic, even. He was overwhelmed and under very little pressure from the detectives. He cracked. He told the truth. He confessed that Gypsy had asked him to commit this crime.
Did Gypsy know that you were going to kill her mother?
Honestly, she asked me to.
Okay. So Gypsy knew you were going to do it because Gypsy asked you to.
Yes.
Why did she ask you to do that?
Because she felt it was her only way to be with me.
Okay. She felt like if you killed the mom, then that's the only way she could be with you.
Yeah.
He explained that she had even provided the knife that he stabbed Dee Dee with and had hidden it somewhere in the house and had told him exactly when, where, and how to do this. He thought he was some kind of a Prince Charming who had come to rescue Gypsy, but he didn't understand that in the eyes of the law, he was in fact a murderer. The interrogation ended with somehow even more questions, and the police understood that Gypsy, Nicholas, the whole community around them, and in fact the world, for all of these years, had been lied to. Everyone had been a victim of Dee Dee's huge deception. Doctors, neighbors, charities, everyone had been lied to. How was it possible? How was it possible that Dee Dee could have lied about a young girl being so severely sick and even had convinced the doctors? Everyone had been deceived. So, to deceive someone is a very strong verb. This is to be lied to, but in a much more dramatic way, in a much more exaggerated way. It's much more than just lying. Dee Dee hadn't just told a lie, she had created this whole image of a very, very sick individual and had convinced even the individual herself, Gypsy, that she was sick and dying and needed all of this treatment. It was only as Gypsy got older and understood, oh, hey, I can walk, and hey, I can eat normal food. I don't need these feeding tubes. It was only then that Gypsy started to realize how her life had been a lie. Dee Dee suffered from something called Munchausen by proxy, and in very basic words, it is this. Munchausen by proxy is a psychological disorder. It's a form of abuse, typically on children, and typically from mothers. Okay, there's evidence of fathers doing this in the past, but this is something that more often comes from women than men. It's a condition where parents feel the need to take care of their child, but in a medical way. And in fact, to make sure that they can take care of them and even begin to control them, they convince the child themselves and the people around them that they are suffering from illnesses. They can falsify or exaggerate or even induce physical or mental illnesses in order to benefit from it. Often it's to get attention, to get sympathy, or to assume a hero role. It's an act that allows the parent to completely control the life of the child. So, Gypsy confesses, Nicholas confesses, and eventually we go to trial. Because of the extreme nature of Gypsy's situation, of the torture that she had endured, the control that she had endured, the legal proceedings did not go to a full trial for her. Instead, Gypsy's legal team were able to negotiate part of a deal. Gypsy told the court and the investigators that because of the medication that her mother gave her, she was physically weak, mentally weak, incapacitated. She couldn't exactly just wake up one day and free herself from this life. She was controlled by her mother and she was terrified of her mother. When asked why, when she realized she could walk, why she didn't talk to the authorities, she said that she was scared of authorities. She was scared of the relationship that her mother had had all of her life with doctors and nurses, and that if she confessed and opened up to anybody, it would get back to her mother, and her mother would make her life even harder than it already was.
Why not just tell somebody rather than kill your mother? Why was that not an option?
I truly didn't believe that nobody would believe me if I told anyone. My mother had legal documents in place saying that I was incompetent, and I thought that meant that if I went to anyone, the police, or told anyone, she would just have them convinced that I was making everything up.
Why did you not tell doctors that you knew you could walk or you didn't believe yourself to be ill during the time that you were doing this?
I didn't think that anyone would believe me. I thought they would eventually tell my mom, and that would make my home life even worse for me. I feared her more than I feared anyone else.
She testified that she felt her mother was never going to let her be free from her, be free from these illnesses, that her mother would never let her grow up, and that she was in fact pushed by all of this to think that the only way she could escape this was by murder.
Why did you want to kill your mother?
Because I wanted to be free of her hold on me.
Gypsy admits that she was the mastermind behind the plan, and she pleaded guilty to second-degree murder in 2016, and she was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Nicholas, instead, was convicted of first-degree murder. Although someone else had planned this and had asked him to do it, he made the decision, he took the knife, and he was the one who stabbed Dee Dee 17 times. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Sorry if it's got really dark. The sun has completely disappeared, so I don't know how this looks now. I hope you can all see me clearly. I think the reflection of my glasses is quite strong. Now, Nicholas is, of course, still spending his life in prison. Gypsy was just recently released and, in fact, has gone on to do a lot of interviews explaining her side of the story. Of course, this is an incredibly famous case. Since leaving prison, Gypsy has gotten married, and earlier this year, in fact, she had her own child. So, now that you know the story, do you think that Gypsy Rose was a victim? Were her actions justified? I would argue that it's undeniable that she was a victim. Her mother had literally stolen her life from her, her childhood, any friends that she may have made, her ability to go to school, participate in sports, to have a normal life. She took her hair. The medication that Gypsy was on for her epilepsy literally made her teeth fall out. I mean, every piece of her was taken away. Her mother clearly loved the attention that she got from being the hero of the situation, for being the caring mother who sacrificed everything to take care of her daughter. She loved the attention, the donations from charities, the free holidays, the money, the house. She wanted her baby girl to stay a baby because she was easier to control this way. And in fact, as Gypsy aged and started to realize the truth about her body, this made Dee Dee even crazier and even more controlling and restricting on her life. Having said that, I think that the way that she was murdered was brutal. I don't think that the murder in itself was justified, although Gypsy probably didn't see another way out. I think Dee Dee should be alive and in prison for what she did. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below, and try to practice that passive voice. Try to use some of the vocabulary that we've seen today as well. According to, deceived, for example. Explain to me your ideas using some of this grammar and the vocabulary that we've seen today. As always, guys, thank you for learning and studying with me. Keep an eye out for my next few videos, and I will see you next time. Bye.